What if you could read the Earth like a book? I mean, what kind of stories would it tell? Well, it turns out you can. Deep in southern Africa, there's a vast geological library known as the Karoo Basins. For 120 million years, they kept this incredibly detailed diary, written in stone, that chronicles the life and death of a supercontinent. And we're about to dive into its most dramatic chapter.
So, take a look at this map. What you're seeing are the Karoo Basins, and they stretch all across South-Central Africa. What's so amazing is that together they preserve the entire saga of the supercontinent Pangaea from its final assembly all the way to its dramatic breakup. But here's the thing. This isn't just some random collection of valleys. Nope, it's the result of a massive continental-scale tug-of-war.
And this, right here, this gets to the very heart of that conflict. You've got to imagine, for millions of years, this part of the supercontinent was getting pulled in two completely opposite directions at the exact same time. Down in the south, you had this relentless squeeze, and up in the north, a powerful stretch.
All right, let's dive into that southern squeeze first. To do that, you need to picture where we are. We're on the ancient southern edge of Gondwana, which was basically a coastline bordering the huge Paleo-Pacific Ocean.
The action here all kicks off with something called subduction. You've got this massive oceanic plate from the Paleo-Pacific, and it starts to dive, or subduct, right underneath the continental plate of Gondwana. This created this just unbelievable compressional force. Think of it like a continent-sized vice grip, just tightening and tightening.
So, what happens when you squeeze an entire continent? Well, first, that collision buckles the crust, and it pushes up a colossal mountain range, what we now call the Cape Fold Belt. Now here's a cool way to think about it. Imagine you place a really heavy book, that's our mountain range, onto a mattress, and the mattress is the continent's crust. What happens? The mattress sags under the weight, right? Well, that sagging is exactly what happened here, creating this huge depression, a basin right behind the mountains, and just like that, the main Karoo Basin was born.
Of course, this giant bowl in the ground didn't stay empty for long. This cross-section of rock layers shows us exactly how it filled up over time. The story starts way down at the bottom, with a deep sea. But as sediment just poured in from those brand new mountains, the basin slowly changed. It went from deep water to shallow seas, and then eventually to river plains and deltas. It's amazing. Each one of these layers is like a different chapter in the basin's life story.
Okay, so now let's jump way up north. Because you have to remember, while all of that squeezing was going on down south, a completely different, almost opposite tectonic story was playing out at the exact same time.
Yeah, you heard that right. The continent was simultaneously being stretched out from its northern edge along a region we call the Tethyan margin. These tensional forces started to spread southward, pulling the supercontinent apart from the inside.
You know, the best way to picture this is with a piece of caramel. As you pull it, what happens? The middle thins out and sags. Well, that's essentially what happened to the Earth's crust up in the north. This whole process is called rifting, and it's what created all these deep cracks and long, narrow valleys.
And this stretching created a totally different result compared to the south. It didn't form one single massive basin. Instead, it created this whole chain of smaller, separate rift valleys, like the Ruhu and Luanga basins you see here. This was a landscape defined by tearing and pulling, not by that heavy sagging we saw before. So let's just put this all side by side for a second. It's a true tectonic tug-of-war. On one side, you've got the southern squeeze, a compressional force caused by a plate diving under the continent, which results in one vast foreland basin. On the other, the northern stretch, an extensional force caused by the continent pulling itself apart, and that results in a chain of rift valleys. Two totally opposite forces shaping the same landmass.
So we have these two very different sets of basins, formed by totally opposing forces. But this is where it gets really interesting. There's a twist. Despite their completely different origins, all of these basins share one incredible unifying story.
And that unifying story is all about climate. It turns out the rock layers, it doesn't matter if they're in the squeezed south or the stretched north, they record the exact same dramatic shifts in the global environment. It's the common thread, you know, the proof that they were all part of the same world, living through the same epic changes.
And man, what a change it was. The story kicks off in the late Carboniferous, deep in a severe ice age. Then, boom, the planet goes through a dramatic global warming phase in the early Permian. This was followed by periods of fluctuating wet and dry seasons, before finally transitioning into the hot, arid, hothouse world of the Triassic. We're talking a 120 million year journey from ice to fire.
The starting point for this whole shared journey was ice. The rock layers show clear evidence of the Dwika glaciation, a massive, massive ice sheet that once covered huge portions of Gondwana. The deposits from this ice age are Chapter 1 in every single Karoo Basin's diary. It's the common ground zero for our entire story.
So, this is the crucial point. This epic conflict between squeezing and stretching, combined with a radically changing climate, is what forged the continent we know today.
And hey, don't just take my word for it. The geologists who studied these basins put it perfectly. They said their entire evolution was governed by these two distinct forces, one pulling, one pushing, from opposite ends of the supercontinent. I mean, that's a perfect summary of this incredible geological drama. This all leads to a really powerful takeaway. The ground that's right under our feet isn't static or permanent. Continents are these incredibly dynamic landscapes, constantly being shaped and reshaped by these immense, silent battles that play out over millions and millions of years.
It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? The same forces that shaped the Karoo are still at work today. The Great Rift Valley in East Africa is literally stretching the continent apart as we speak. So if this is the story of Africa's past, what will its next chapter look like?